Hi everybody, it's Dominic Kotarski, founder of Sales Success Academy and author of The Making. I welcome you back to the studio, Sales Success Studio, where we really get deep down into learning better skills, getting inspired, getting instructed, getting motivated so we can take ourselves and our businesses to the next level. What I want to share with you today is really some of basics of elements of human nature. And these elements need to be in our sales process, but this is really the big five, what I call the big five of why people buy. So this is more the internal motivation inside your customer, and yourself as a salesperson is, I guess, more of the catalyst inside. Because the pressure, oftentimes I think what happens is in sales, we put the pressure on ourselves. Obviously, if you have superiors or you have, managers above you, or even if you're, the sole, manager of your own business, when you wake up in the morning, you feel compelled that you've got to go out there in the marketplace and you've got to get business and you've got to make it happen. Although that's true and that's there, oftentimes none of us work really, really good under pressure. What we tend to do when we're under pressure is if you're anything like me, when I'm under pressure, I freeze up a little bit and I'm thinking, oh, what do I got to do now? And I don't like pressure. So one of the things that I helped is more of a mental exercise and it's just really asking myself the question is, where really is the pressure? Is the pressure on me to sell my product or service to my customer, or is the pressure on the customer to solve their problem, challenge, or issue? And I find that if I take the pressure off myself and then look at the customer and say, well, listen, they have their own pressures. They've got their own needs. They've got their own desires. They've got their own things that they need to fix. What I'm going to do is present to them my product or my service in the best light, and I want to be relaxed and be confident and be motivated that if they so choose my product or service, this will be the best thing in the world for them. So one of obviously the part of this exercise is for you to transfer a lot of your own pressure and then just put it out there in the atmosphere. I'm not saying that the customer has to have pressure on them, but listen, the pressure is more on them to solve their problem or issue than it is on you to put pressure on yourself where you end up not performing well. And I don't want that for any of us here in Sales Success Academy, because we're experts. We are learning skills that are going to help us for a lifetime, and we can serve better if we're at our best. So let's talk about the first one. Now, obviously, all sales is involved with an element of logical aspects to solving the problem or issue, and then the emotional aspects. And studies have shown that, if I can use an example, I like to use an example of, this is the ocean, and this is a big iceberg. So I like to use the example of the part that you can see and the part that you can't see. So obviously, if we're on the boat, and let's hope that we're not on the Titanic here, but if you're on a boat and you're moving into the ground, what you can't see is the 90% below the surface of the iceberg. What you can see is the 10% if you look hard enough. But if you're at night and you're in a big boat and you're going, really, really quickly, obviously that's what happened, unfortunately, with the Titanic. But in your boat, you can see that, so you can move around it logically. The 90% is we're going to say for our purposes, is the emotional side of the business. And that's the part that is inside the customer. And that's a little bit of what we're going to talk about, why people buy. The logical part, which would be above the surface, this is the aspect of your product or service, and these are your features. This is what your product or service actually does. And all too often, salespeople spend way too much time on the features and even about the benefits, whereas what you want to do is you want to spend a little bit more time around the emotional aspect, because this is really where the decisions are getting made. I use the example is that, we buy things based on emotion, and we justify things on logic. So we can explain why we bought the things we did, whether it be a really nice car. I mean, let's be honest, us men that are salesmen here, I'm sure that you've always had that point where you have that really, really nice car. I know in my lifetime, it was all about having a Corvette, and then later on it was about having really fast BMW, not just a normal BMW, but an Alpina. Those are things that I really worked crazily hard for so I could just drive these cars. And of course I could justify it to my wife because, you need a fancy car if you're doing, if you're doing sales training, or if you're a director of a company, you need to have a nice car because, you need to motivate your staff. You need to motivate people that you're working with so they can have the same things as you. And but you buy it off of emotion, right? So let's get more into the subject about what's happening inside the customer. The first aspect of why people buy, and it's kind of an ugly word, but at the same time it's human nature. We're greedy, but let's talk about greed in a nice way. I'm greedy for my family because I want the best for them. I want the best education. I want the best atmosphere. I want to make sure that they're not in a situation where, that they have choices in life, where they are forced into situations where they have to go to the army or have to go to war. I want the best for my family, so I'm greedy for them. But I'm greedy in a nice way because I love them and I want the best out of them. So I don't want to use greed in a negative context, but we're all greedy. Greed is inside the person. If you found out that there's a great product or a great service out there, you want it for yourself or you want it for your organization. So there is that underlying greed. And the more you appeal to that, the more you understand, and let's be honest, greed is on the emotional level, isn't it? It's not really logical. We can't explain why we want what we want sometimes or why we desire what we want sometimes, but it's always there. So as a salesperson or as a presenter, as a consultant, you want to make sure that you're in a situation where you're not talking about that, but you're delivering a product or service where you can kind of feel that. Because there's 5 senses. Obviously, people can touch things, feel, see, smell, taste. Those are our 5 senses, but that's how we perceive the world. Those are our filters as human beings. And if you can present your product or your service in a way that sort of taps into that human nature side, you're more than half the way there, because we want things and we want them now, and we do things based on our desire. The other part of it, and this is more yourself as a salesperson, is indifference. And indifference is a funny thing. Indifference is something that you will do. When somebody's successful, they have that air about them that they would love to do business with you, but they don't have to do business with you. Indifference is something that really, really top salespeople just have, and you could call it charm, or you could call it, a success factor. But when they go out in the marketplace, they would love for you to have their product or service, but it's not going to change your life if you get it or not. And indifference becomes a very sexy thing because it's almost like, I don't need you because I'm successful anyway. That's not the point. And indifference is not that you don't care, but indifference is something that you show that we know we have the solution for you. We know this product can help solve your issue and change your problem. And I'm going to present it to you in the best way. And I know that if you take this, it'll fix your problem or issue now. You see where the pressure is not on you. The pressure is more on the consumer, more on the customer to decide for themselves if this is right for them. And the more you can put it out there and display, and the less that you try, so hard to show them that this is for them and push the product or service down their throat, the more attractive you are. So this is sort of the magnet that attracts customers to salespeople and to their solutions. The way you show indifference is not about not caring. It's about showing that you have a great thing, you have pride in your product or service, you know it solved other people's problems or issue, and you got a long line of happy customers that have used your product or service and they've had success with it. So that's the second side of basically why people are buying. The third part, and this is something that you can show with what you're doing. This is something where, the way we work as human nature and the way we've been built up is that we see life as scarcity. Now, for me and you here in Sales Success Academy, we know that's not true. The more success you have, the more success you'll build on, and success breeds success, as we know. Successful people still keep getting more successful because they've kind of tapped into that momentum. But for the purposes of just the average person, we still have that inside our brain that there's only so much out there. There's only so much gold, so we want to get as much gold for ourselves. There's only so much money. So if other people are doing something and they're getting their product or service and they're using it and they're happy, that becomes the fear of loss. So sometimes in fear of loss is a little bit of working about limitations is if you don't get it, unfortunately, it's going to be gone. If you don't grab this product, unfortunately, your problem is still going to be there when I walk away. So your ability to instill inside your sales conversation just that little bit of fear of loss without being phony, without being fake, it's an honest fact. Your customer would not be this far into conversation with you if they haven't found something inside your product or service that they want or desire. They wouldn't still be there with you. So make sure that you're presenting this in a way that you would love to see them solve the problem, and hopefully they can resolve it now. And this kind of leads me to the next part, and then what you want to do in your conversation is instill the sense of urgency. It's a real important aspect of selling. And that's what really drives people. I see so many people in the marketplace that they do such a great presentation. They get me a little bit motivated. They're like, yeah, I see I can work that. But then they don't instill with me the sense of urgency that, if I get this now, my problems are solved, and then of course I can move on to the next challenges. And the ability to instill the sense of urgency is something that you really need to work out in your game plan, in your conversations with your customer. Because if you don't put a time limit on it, if you don't say that this is your special deal and it's only available for 24 hours, or what you can leave the process onto the customer, but make sure that they know that this deal is not a forever deal. And you can do it in many ways. You can use examples that this is the version of your product, and this is only going to be available at this price for so long. Because we've had such a demand, what's going to happen is that the price is going to not stay at this discounted level for the opening of the marketplace, but the price will be going up. So people go, oh wow, yeah, okay, the price will be going up. Well, I want to make sure that I get this now. So that would be a way to offer a sense of urgency. You see it so often on products or promotions or campaigns on the internet where there's a seminar coming up, and if you get in now, then you don't have to pay the normal rate as if you just decide to show up on the day of the seminar. So that's where they're creating sense of urgency in their campaigns, where you're like, well, I want to get this now because I don't want to, I kind of want to go there, but I don't want to show up on the day and pay a higher price. So it's getting in early. That can create a sense of urgency. There's so many little things you can do when you're presenting your product or service that will motivate and get people excited. And let's be honest, it's putting that lever on them a little bit to say, I need to make a decision now, and you know what? You're right. I need to, let's go ahead and do this. And this is what you want to have. So this is the process, or let's say the ability of the professional salespeople. What they've learned how to do is create this environment where the sense of urgency is naturally there while they're doing their presentation. People are getting their desire built up, where they just go, listen, just stop talking. I really like what you're doing. Where do I sign up? And the ones that are master at this, they'll find that they're creating such a sense of urgency that people want their product and they want their service now, and they're ready to sign, or they're ready to get their checkbook out. And the last reason, I guess the biggest thing that really helps, I want to call this the sheep factor. And we all know the story of sheep, that sheep follow sheep. Farmers have known that for ages. You can get one sheep going the other direction and they all follow. And the old saying that, that one sheep goes over the cliff, the rest will follow. So with the sheep factor, this is really more about social proof. And this is why testimonials are so big. This is why on every single website for a great product or service, you'll find testimonials. You don't need a million of them, but I know that in talking about your customers, other customers who have used the product or service, in your sales conversation really helps build up that motivation inside the customer to go, well, if so-and-so uses it, wow, I could use that too. And it's so powerful when you use the sheep factor, when you're basically using testimonials, when you're talking about satisfied customers, or even doing case studies. You can spend a lot of time working on a case study. One of the things that I did, which really was helpful in my business at a time where I didn't have that many clients and I needed another high-profile client, is I was able to provide them a solution which was building an entire sales force from scratch inside their company just by bringing in one salesperson, and then we built up to 150 salespeople over the course of a 2-year time. What I did was I provided the infrastructure, I provided the sales training, I provided the incentive plans for the customers, I provided the coaching and training culture that we needed, and more importantly, I provided the sales growth system, which was the system that they could use for training their salespeople, which puts them all on the same page, and then on top of that, the work habits. And what happened is that I explained to them that this is the same system that professional sales companies use in order to build their sales force. And that was just that extra lever that they needed because they wanted it so badly for themselves that they were willing to pay me over $500,000 for this information. And this $500,000 was not just one check of that. That was what I got over a 3-year period of time training and coaching that company to the high level. And this was when I was doing my training in Europe. The sheep factor is very, very powerful because it is the social proof. If other people are using it and it's working for them, that's how it's using it. So if you put all of these together, you have a really nice thing. You have a GIFTS. What happens is you end up with a gift for the customer, which is your product or service, and you get a gift for yourself, which is a happy customer and more money in your pocket. I hope this serves you. Obviously, I want to encourage you to make sure that you stick with these trainings and that you go step by step with each of the trainings and you listen to them over and over again, because I know that they'll really serve you and they'll really help you as they've done me through my sales career. I'll see you on the next training. Before then, have a great day. Make sure you go out there. I want you to be strong. I want you to be bold. I want you to have courage, and make sure you make it happen for yourself today. See you later.